What's up, guys? Justin here with the RenderingEssentials.com, back with another Lumion rendering tutorial for you. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how to bring in custom materials and apply them inside of your Lumion renderings. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a video where I talked a little bit about bringing materials in and applying them inside of Lumion. And before we get started, the first thing I want to note is this is a model that I've brought over from SketchUp. So you can see how if you look at the SketchUp model, this has all the materials applied inside of SketchUp. So everything that we're showing right now is a material that's been applied in SketchUp. And that's really important because when you look at this inside of Lumion, you want to be able to apply materials differently to each one of these objects. And the only way that that works when you bring that in from SketchUp is they need to have different materials already applied to them. So like for example, this blanket has a different wool material than this mattress does. And so if you ever have a problem where you're trying to apply materials inside of Lumion and it's going on things you don't want it to go onto, you need to go back into SketchUp and you need to actually apply a separate material to those things so that you can then texture them separately within Lumion. And so part of the reason that I wanted to make this video is it was kind of, I've talked about POLIIGON before. There's a lot of great there's a lot of great texture websites out there. I do use the stuff from POLIIGON a lot just because I really like the maps and everything else. There's also like Megascans and that kind of thing. But I got an email this morning and they were talking about how they've added a bunch of different carpet material. So I wanted to kind of try some of that out, and I thought this would be a good time to do that and just to kind of talk about how to apply those materials inside of Lumion. So I'm also interested to see how these look because they're supposed to be digitally created carpet materials as opposed to photo carpet materials that that don't tile right and all of that. So I just wanted to give it a shot and we'll see. But no matter where you get your materials, this should be valuable to you because you use the same workflow to replace materials no matter what. All right, so to start off in Lumion, when you first when you bring in materials, you're going to adjust them using the material editor, and the material editor can be found in the lower left hand corner right under this little paint bucket thing that says materials. And so once you click on that, what it says is it says to click on an imported model to modify its material. And in this case what that means is you can click on a material like this wood planks in order to edit it. And so what we want to do in this case is we want to change this wood planks material to a custom carpet material that we're going to bring in. So if this is an exterior material or an external material, this is going to show up in the custom tab. And what we want to do is we want to go in and we want to click on the button for standard. And so what standard material is going to allow us to do is that's going to allow us to create our own material wherever this wood planks material was applied. And so to start off, what I want to do is I've downloaded some material files, in this case from POLIIGON, but you're going to want to go find whatever you've downloaded and take a look at that. And so let's take a look real quick at what the files look like when you download them from a website like POLIIGON. So depending on where you get them, usually what they're going to have is they're going to have a bunch of different files that come down. So like for example, this one is going to have like a gloss map and a normal map and a color map. So lots of different maps as well as this color material right here. The color material is going to be the actual image that's being applied. So in this case, if I go look at my color map and I double click on that, and you open that up, that's going to look like this material. And so in this case, this looks a little bit more like a fabric than a carpet to me. So I'm going to use this on the comforter on the bed. And so in order to do that, we'll go ahead and we'll click on this comforter instead of the floor. And then we're just going to go into the standard material right here. And we're going to click on the button for choose color map. And so when we click on the button for choose color map, that's going to ask us to go find the material that we want to apply to this comforter. So in this case, I'm just going to go into that folder where my carpet file was, and I'm just going to take this color map file. You want to make sure you get the color map and double click on it. And so what that's going to do is that's going to take this color map file, and as I zoom in, you can see how that's applying that to this material. So it's mapping that along here, and the UV mapping seems to be pretty good. Everything seems to be working pretty well. And so what we want to do now is we want to make a few different adjustments. So we want to start off and we want to choose the normal map. And if you remember, the normal map is going to be the map that creates kind of the ups and downs that makes this look rough when we render it. And so for a lot of these websites, that's really easy. You just go back into the folder where you downloaded your files and you just apply them there. So in this case, I'm going to click on Choose Normal Map, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find the normal map file right here. I'm just going to double click on that, and that's going to apply that normal map file to this material. And you can see how when it does this, if you zoom in, you're actually getting kind of the fabric-y material, the kind of ins and outs of what fabric would look like applied to this now. And one thing you need to adjust though, and you need to keep an eye on when you do something like this, is you really need to keep an eye on things like the gloss and the reflectivity. Because right now this almost looks metallic in the way that it's applied to this. Well, obviously a comforter is not going to be metallic. So all we need to do is we just need to go in there and we need to adjust our gloss down. And you need to adjust it pretty far down, because obviously a like wool comforter or whatever this fabric material is not going to be glossy. So you just need to kind of think about what the effects of this material need to be. And so the other thing you need to think about is the reflectivity. And so really what that means is you just need to think about how much light is going to reflect off of this material. So in this case, I'm probably going to drag this down again because this is kind of a fabric material. So you don't want it to reflect that much light. You don't want it to be like super shiny or anything like that. So we're going to adjust our reflectivity down. And then the relief is just going to affect how strong the bump map material is applied to this. So how strongly that roughness from the fabric is going to show up, and that's going to change depending on how rough you want your fabric to look. And so the other thing you could do if you wanted to, like if you didn't like the size of the scale or the size of the map that's being applied on here, and you wanted this to be like bigger, you could adjust your map scale like this, and you can see how what that's doing is that's applying this larger and larger and larger. So in my case, I like the scale that it came in at, so I'm just going to leave it at 0. So I've kind of got this comforter material brought in, and so I've made the changes that I want. I've got my maps set up, and I like the way that this looks. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finalize that by going down to the lower right hand corner and clicking the Save Changes button. So what I'm going to do real quick is I want to do a quick render just looking at this material to see what it's going to look like. And that's one thing I like about Lumion, is it's really fast to do that. So we're just going to click on the button here for photo, and if you remember, photo is going to allow us to come in here and do an actual rendering. And so what I've done is I've just imported a presets file that I've created before, and I will link to the video where I created that presets file, but that's going to bring in all of these things that are going to affect the way that all of this looks. The one thing I have adjusted is I did go into my effects and add a real sky, just because I like the lighting that that creates. But you can see how I can adjust how the lighting is going to come in through the window and everything else by adjusting that real sky. You could do this with the Lumion sun as well. And so I've got the lighting kind of set up the way I want it to be. I'm just going to adjust my camera angle a little bit, and then all I'm going to do once I set all that up and get all my presets set up, and again I'll link to that video in the notes below, I'm just going to click the button for render photo, and I'm just going to render this to the size that I'm used to, and I'm just going to call this something like test 3. If you do a lot of tests, you may want to think about naming these differently, but you can see how when we do this and we look at this fabric material, it gets really realistic based on those maps and everything else that's been applied in here. So I might think about maybe reducing the brightness over here, maybe adding like a backfill light over here, but you can see how my imported material looks really good. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back in and I'm just going to adjust 1 or 2 more materials, and then let's do a render to see how that's going to look. And I'll probably just speed this part of the video up a little bit, but we're just going to follow that same process. so I was able to really quickly replace this wool material, and the carpet material. And now what I want to do is I just want to create a rendering of this space just to kind of see how everything's going to look. And we could fool around with this some more. You could even have a view like looking out the window. You could mess around with the real skies and everything else in order to create something really cool. I want to focus a little bit on the materials themselves. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go back into photo mode. And we're just going to kind of zoom in, maybe kind of set this up where we get a good look at the carpet over here, probably even increase the focal length, because what I really want is I want a close-up of those materials, so the 3 materials that I've applied here. And probably I'm even going to bring the brightness, I don't know if I'm going to bring the overall brightness down, or maybe just adjust this so there's not quite as much sun on the actual wall itself, but you can kind of play around with that. That's the great thing about Lumion. Maybe I'll drag this back here just a bit. And so all I'm going to do is maybe I'll pop this up a little more, maybe not, and we're just going to go ahead and render this photo. So I'm just going to render this, and I'm just going to call this test 4. So I'm just going to hit the enter key, and we're just going to let this render. And what I really want to focus on is just how easy it was to bring in those materials and apply them here, and also how realistic they look. And one thing, and we're not going to talk about that in this video, is we may need to be a little bit careful of the way these materials are being mapped. If you take a look at these aren't necessarily smooth and continuing like they would be in real life. So that may be, the UV mapping may be something we have to fix inside of SketchUp. But overall, I think this looks really good. The carpet looks really realistic. So your fabric material right here looks really realistic. And all it was a couple clicks in order to bring these materials in. So that's where I'm going to end this video. Leave a comment below and let me know what you thought. Was this helpful to you? Do you do a lot of importing of custom materials into Lumion? I just love having that conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new rendering content every week. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.